Welcome to episode 35 of How About Them Huskies. I'm Connor, joined with Matt, Andrew, and Matt. And in episode 35 today, we're talking about title number 5 as UConn defeated San Diego State on Monday to win the national championship in Houston. It was a great game, all around dominant effort, 76-59. Adama Snogo was the star. Tristan Newton really stepped it up as well. Overall, a great team win, another dominant team win in this NCAA tournament that UConn pretty much breezed through effortlessly. The closest game was 13 points in the Final Four against Miami. I mean, they were leading. I mean, they were trailing in the second half for only 50 something seconds against Iona, and that's it. I mean, this is a historically dominant run for a 4 seed. Even I feel like we were a little underseeded. Could have been a 3. I mean, the metrics certainly said so, but all in all, UConn for the 5th time in program history is headed or won the national championship, and I'm just amazed. I'm so proud. I'm happy. All the emotions with this group.
Yeah, and it just feels surreal. And I just didn't know what to think. Like it doesn't feel real. I didn't think I'd be sitting here today saying we'd have number 5. Especially when we started this podcast. So I'm thinking, we'll start this podcast and they'll probably have a good year, but it'll just be fun to do. And maybe they'll win a national championship and we could talk about that. And look at that. We're talking about that in the first year. And I just want to bring a stat to your guys' attention right now. So this is backed up by math. People have done the metrics on this. People have done the advanced statistics on this. Some really smart people. And since How About Them Huskies was created, UConn has won the national championship every year. So I wouldn't say we're the good luck charm, but I think we played a role in this team's success this year. We're kind of like the way Lucky is to the Celtics, and I think we deserve a ring, and I think we deserve a banner.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the point where, at the start of the season, I don't know, none of us really, I don't, it was hard to say that any of us really expected a national championship, especially me. I made some comments early on in the year about doing my due diligence to the team, even though, I was excited for next year. Uh, I was so wrong. I was so wrong about it. And it was just like, I'm just so happy to be so wrong, like I'd rather be wrong about something like this and come here and be able to admit it than say I called it from the start and just be lying. So it is like Connor said, all the emotions, and it's just a lot of fun. We got a parade going on tomorrow. Pretty sure most of, if not all of us, will be attending. So I'm just ready to have some fun, enjoy title number 5, and keep the podcast going.
I mean, yeah, you didn't look at this team, look at what happened and said this is a national championship team because I mean, we went out early last year. We were a good team last year. Went out early, lost a lot of people to the transfer portal and brought in new people. And a lot of people said, this is a rebuild year. Newton, Aline Diarra probably only be here for 1 year and then they'll declare for the draft, go play overseas, something like that. But I mean, clearly they had a different game plan because they just really just like Connor said, breeze through March Madness and just to piss all the people off that have said that UConn doesn't deserve this because they played this seed and that seed. I just want to remind everybody that we beat a top 5 team all year by 28 points. I don't know if you forgot that, but I'm just gonna put that out there. But it was definitely tough to look at this team and think national championship just because of what had happened last year and the fact that it was a bunch of new guys coming in. I mean, 2 freshmen and like 4 or 5 transfers and a couple of guys that stuck around. But this team really got it done, and I really credit that to Andre Jackson's quote about how he respected the decisions of the people who left, but only the strong survive. And clearly that's true because that team just won a national championship together. So it's really great to see this team win a national championship. I know I celebrated it after. It was a long night, but it was worth it. But I'm just really excited that I got to see this team of all teams in particular win a national championship together.
Yeah, and to Matt's point about, us maybe saying some stuff, I think if you went back to that little Big East play slide we had at the beginning of Big East play, you could probably put together about a 30-minute compilation of us saying things that were maybe hypocritical or maybe overreacting to things, even though at the beginning of this podcast when we first started, I would always say, I don't overreact to stuff, but we all did. And, that's being a basketball fan. That's basketball. That's being a UConn fan. And it's really cool that, if we wanted to, we could go back and just hear all the ups and downs, and we could sit here now and talk about, you know, that we're national champions. But another thing is, about what Andrew was talking about, all the new guys and all only the strong survive. I think it definitely took this team a little while to get complete continuity, even though the beginning of the season was really good and we struggled in the middle of the season. But just the continuity and the togetherness and everyone just making the right pass, making the right play, trusting their teammates. That's what it looks like on a national championship team. And they really didn't have that sometimes during Big East play, but it just all came together at the right time. And it was a really talented group. And it was just up to Dan Hurley to make sure that these guys played well together and that these guys, trusted each other and that they had that chemistry. And that was really some of the best college basketball I've seen a team play ever. Everything just looked so smooth. It looked like practice against the air. They're just running the plays like how they're drawn up, and that was beautiful. That was just some beautiful basketball. I'm all over the place right now, guys. I don't know about you. I'm getting excited again thinking about this game.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard and crazy to think that there's not going to be another UConn game for what, 7 months. I mean, obviously, we have a lot to look forward to in the off season, but it is the off season after all. I mean, it's going to be a while, but this team's going to reload. There's been a couple of roster changes already announced. The only one that has to leave, Joey Calcaterra, he's gone, and Jordan Hawkins announced today he'll be declaring for the draft as he should. I feel like we all agree he's should be a lottery pick, if not early to mid first. I mean, he definitely should go and take advantage of this. Even with the NIL, I feel like an NBA lottery level draft pick and he should just go. I mean, he's done his due diligence here. He won a national championship for crying out loud. I feel like Jordan Hawkins, we it'd be a disservice if he's played another year at UConn. What if he gets injured and I don't know, tears his ACL and his draft stock plummets second round undrafted? Not saying that would happen, but it's a possibility. You're at this level, you got to go.
Yeah, a player like him, he's a little bit raw for NBA standards, I'd say. But I mean, all it takes is one good, professional level coach to turn this guy into a perennial all-star. He has all the tools. The dude can shoot the lights out. He cuts to the rim very aggressively. He's a good defender. He does everything you would want out of a one or two guard. And I feel like, probably mid first round's a fair assessment for him. Like we agreed today, Connor, I'm pretty sure you said it, 12 to 18 range is a perfect kind of spot for him. End up on a team where he probably won't play any more than 10 or 15 minutes a game, but learn a few things, and then maybe the next year come out and maybe start some games.
Yeah, and I'm a strong believer in that. If the money's right there, do yourself a favor, do your team a favor, and take it. Like Connor was saying, anything could happen, and it would be a shame for him to just not go out when the opportunity is right in front of him. It's good for him. It's good for the program to produce first round picks, maybe even lottery picks, and obviously recruits just want to see a guy from the school that they might choose playing in the NBA, and Hawkins, I really do think will have a great NBA career just because of how catered his game is to today's NBA. Just his creativity for getting open, the way he can just run around, like his skill set reminds me of a Chris Middleton type skill set. He could just run around off ball screens, and as soon as he touches it, he's a threat to turn around and elevate. I really think that could be a ceiling. He's obviously got some physical growing to do, but I think even from last year to this year, he grew a lot physically. He definitely looked a lot stronger, especially at the end of the season. So sky's the limit for him, and I'm glad he's going to take his money.
And not only is it like the money thing, the developmental thing, but it would be hard for him to stay because then we wouldn't get to see the early development of a guy like Solo Ball, who's going to be in his position. Like a lot of people were saying, oh, RJ should have stayed for a fifth year instead of going pro because he didn't get drafted and went to Greece. Then you don't get to see a guy like Tristan Newton develop into the player he turned into. Like same thing with Tyrese Martin. I mean, he could have stayed, sure, but then you don't get to see a guy like Jackson really develop the way he wants to, or even Hawkins. So it's not only the money thing and is he ready, but it's also for the development of the program and producing people at the same position. But I'm excited for what this team's going to bring next year. But I am excited to see what Hawkins does in the NBA because I feel like a certain someone, our last lottery pick, has left a little bit of a bad taste in the fans' mouths as regard to NBA kind of talent because he was a big time recruit and hasn't quite panned out. We've got Martin and Whaley in the G League, and obviously our guys Polly and Cole playing over in Greece. But I feel like Hawkins is really suited well to this game just because of the catch and shoot method. I mean, I think he's got the nicest form, and some coach will create a good play for him to go around to pick that a guy who's probably bigger than Sonogo or Klingon will set for him, and he'll hit the open shots, you know. So I think that he'll do fine in the NBA, but I can't wait to see who he gets drafted by because it's a wild card. I mean, he could go anywhere, but it's really good to see guys from UConn going to the draft like this because main goal of this is to have guys go every year. So it's definitely the right decision for Hawk to go to the NBA draft.
No, I really don't care where he goes, but not Charlotte, please. I mean, that hasn't really worked. I mean, we see with Book Night right now, and the team as a whole, they kind of mismanaged their young guys a little bit. I mean, if he goes there, he goes there. I'm still going to support him. Obviously, I'll still buy a Hawkins jersey for Charlotte, but I mean, I feel like they kind of did Book Night dirty. He also didn't help himself with some off court stuff and play, but I mean, if we can avoid that, I mean, that'd be ideal. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the other guys who may declare maybe on the fence. Andre, I know Andre has said that he wants to run it back for title number 6. I mean, but I feel like if there's an opportunity for him to be a first round pick, I feel like he has to take it. I mean, maybe that's just me saying that, but I mean, if I was in his shoes and I have scouts telling me, "Oh, we're gonna take you first round, 25th overall," you got to take that. I feel like a similar thing with Sonogo. I maybe winning the most outstanding player rises his draft stock as well. I mean, I feel like it'd be hard to be told you're a first round pick in this year's draft a couple months away and decide I'm going back to school. But I feel like those are also two very loyal players to the program. So it's really a tough either or situation. I'm curious to see what will go down.
With Andre, it's a bit of a tough one, mainly because a lot of the hype around him is based off his athleticism, and it's just raw talent. He's a great player, and I feel like if he were to stay an extra year, then I feel like his draft stock just decreases because this raw athleticism, it's suddenly becoming 22, 23 years old, and it's not as interesting as it was when it was 21. You know what I mean? So I feel like NBA scouts are looking at him very closely. I feel like this is it for him. I feel like he'd be losing out if he didn't left now, just because of his potential and the opportunity he's going to get if he were to go now opposed to next year. I feel like he won't get nearly the same amount of opportunity as he would get if he just left this year. Went bet on himself and earned his money.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing for Andre as I'll say for Jordan Hawkins. If the money's there, go take it. But that being said, I really do feel like he's a guy who could benefit from one more year of college, especially after he really, really found his role on this team this March. And that was without even having his outside shot really developed. I think if he wanted to stay, and this would be a great offseason for him to really develop that 3-point ball. I think he could be a guy who's averaging 10 points a game next year on top of like 6 assists, 8 rebounds, and obviously is our most impactful defensive player. So either way, I would like it. But if he's a projected first round pick and he's going to get paid, Andre, do yourself a favor, take the money.
This is a tough situation with these two. You know, Hawkins obviously was an easy decision to go, but with these two, it's definitely what Sark said is true about how both Adama, Snogo, and Jackson could benefit from another year of college because I'm not quite sure if either of them are ready to play in the NBA just yet. But at the same time, you know, with today's day and age, if a coach really likes a guy like Jackson's athleticism, he can probably coach his shot into something that's just fine. So it's definitely going to be a weird situation because they are extremely low. You know, Hawkins is on a mission, but Jackson did say that he was going to come here and stay all 4 years. So it's really I'm on the fence. Like I couldn't tell you whether I think they're going or staying, but I do want to point out that at the parade tomorrow, The three speakers are going to be Sonogo, Jackson, and Hurley. And, if you're watching this tomorrow and you're at the parade, this could be completely wrong, and I could look like a complete idiot, which is probably going to happen. But, I mean, there's a chance they could be running it back and announcing it at the parade tomorrow. I don't know. I did see on Twitter to expect some roster moves in the next couple of days, so I don't know. We'll see. Most likely going to end up looking like a moron, but that's okay. But it's definitely would be a tough decision for him to make because there's a lot of perfectly fine options for him to take here. But I feel like it's gonna come down to Hurley talking to these NBA guys, like seeing what they think that he can improve on, if they really are committed to him or not. Because Hurley's only gonna tell him to go if he gets the okay that a team is going to draft him, like not on the fence or anything. So it'll be an interesting couple of months though for sure.
One name I want to talk about really briefly before we move on from this draft and who's going to declare talk is Donovan Clingan. I'm in the boat where I feel like it's in his best interest to at least test the waters this year. Not saying he should go. I don't think he will go. But if there's a team that says, hey, you work on a three ball, you're 7-2 shot blocker that rebounds, that can knock down a three once in a while, you're a lottery pick next year, especially at a young age. I feel like it would definitely be beneficial for him to at least test the waters. And who knows, there could be some team that says, oh, we want you in the first round this year. I doubt that's the case, but I mean, he's raw. I mean, NBA scouts, if there's one thing they love, it's raw. I mean, you look at some of the guys that average 3 points per game at Kentucky go first round because of their potential as an athleticism. I feel like Clingan, he's not quite at that level. He's a little different category, but I feel like I feel like I wouldn't be shocked if he at least tests the waters for the NBA draft. If he goes after 1 year coming off the bench, playing 15 minutes per game, I mean, kudos to him. He clearly knows something, but I feel like it'd be beneficial to get that feedback. We've seen guys like Tyler Polley a couple of years ago declared and came back after getting some feedback. Now he's playing professionally. I mean, it's definitely a great learning experience for the players. And now I want to talk a little about this national championship game. I feel like we kind of skipped over it. A little recap. UConn, they were down early. The San Diego State hit their first couple of threes. It was not a little nerve-wracking. I still felt confident, but they were making their shots. Their crowd was getting into it. Then we went on our run and we pretty much blew it open until they cut it close in the second half. They cut it to 5. But out of a timeout, Hurley ran a beautiful set for Hawkins. There was like 5 or 6 screens on the play to get him a wide open shot at the top of the key for 3 to push it to 8, and that was pretty much it after that. When I mentioned Sonogo, he was the most outstanding player. He had 17 points and 10 rebounds. Tristan Newton, one of his better games of the season, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Hawkins, 16 points. Even guys like Joey in his final game at the Husky hit 2 threes. Naheem Aline, 6 key points. Clingan disrupted down low. Jackson, 6 assists. He averaged 6.8 assists, I believe, in the NCAA tournament, which that should be eye-opening to scouts, I feel like. And Caravan, he was in a little bit of foul trouble late. He had 5 points, 5 rebounds. Overall, another very balanced team win. I feel like we've said that every time because it's been the case every time. I mean, everyone contributes. This game it was 8, no Hassan Diarra really in the rotation, but all 8 or 9 guys contribute every game.
This definitely isn't going to go without saying, but Andrew Hurley also grabbed the board in the national championship game. I feel like that has to be mentioned. But this game was really giving me like vibes from the Providence game. Just being at that game and seeing them blow it wide open. After a little bit of struggles in the first, they weren't necessarily down in that Providence game, but then being down in this one and then blowing it open and then seeing it go right back down to 5. It's just I said to myself, I'm like, damn it, it's happening again. I mean, it's the same thing whenever we go down since that Providence game. It's getting lazy and giving up wide open shots. Like turning over the ball before you get it over half court is just something that should never ever happen. It just shouldn't happen, and it's always going to lead to big swings in possession, stuff like that. So it was really starting to scare me once they started hitting shots and putting it down to 5. But I didn't think that we were going to lose just because I thought that Hurley was going to, light a fire under their ass. But it was definitely nerve wracking. But all in all, it was a great game. I mean, San Diego did their best on defense. I mean, they couldn't hit their shots, but that was also partially us playing really good defense. So it was just a really good game. in general. And all the people that can saying it's the worst national championship game in the last 20 years. If you ever watched college basketball, I mean, good lord.
Yeah, and in this one, they kind of proved that they're the top team in the country. I remember not just this year, years past. We would always get into tight games and then always lose them. It's just how it went. I remember that game against Villanova last year was the big one. Everyone kind of thought like, all right, like this is changing, like things are kind of different now. But I mean, we even saw it happen again this year against Xavier Providence, and against even in Providence in the Big East. But that first that was the game. I felt like, all right, like these guys have something. Um, and I remember in the national championship game, we were all watching. We were just texting back and forth, and they cut it to 5. And I texted, this is where we see what they're made of. This is where we see if we really deserve to be national champions. And they came out firing after that. We got the lead back up to 10, 12, 14. And we ended up winning by 13. And I mean, people say that UConn had like this cupcake schedule. They forget that UConn's defense was the best throughout the whole tournament. Teams aren't this inefficient. Teams don't have this bad of shooting nights against just regular teams. UConn's defense was the best team. It was the best defense throughout the whole tournament, and that's not a debate. You've seen plenty of arguments on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all talking about UConn. They didn't really face any real teams. That's such a lie. I mean, look at who San Diego State got to play in order to make it to the finals. If they won, nobody would have said anything. But just because it's UConn, they like to give the hate.
Yeah, and one guy who I really just got to tip my cap to here is Tristan Newton. Just I think completely the unsung hero of this championship run, based on the fact that he struggled this year a little bit at times, in Big East play. I keep talking about the struggles in Big East play, but that was a big thing. And he definitely struggled at times. He struggled scoring the ball. He struggled with efficiency. He struggled with turnovers. And he came out and as the lead guard for us was averaging over 5 assists. He was scoring the ball very effectively. He had his biggest game in the biggest moment. And he was just such like a calming presence for us. You could always just run him off a ball screen and it seemed like he'd make the right read, even though he did have a couple turnovers in the second half there that got a little frustrating. But, coming out of East Carolina, I was really expecting a good player, but I wasn't expecting lead guard on a national championship team. So I really got to tip my hat to him. And another thing about him is just having, your smallest guy in the court be 6'4", and he's bringing the ball up and he's your playmaker. That's such a big, big thing. Big guards are just the new wave in basketball. Just having as much length in your lineup as possible, having guys who could just cover as much space as possible is huge on defense. It's huge for rebounding. And we're lucky that we got a couple big guards in Stephon Castle and Jaden Ross coming in next year. They're really talented. And I'm glad that Hurley's starting to really put his fingerprint on having a big guard. I think that's a huge thing in basketball these days.
Yeah, and you mentioned Castle, and Newton has a chance to come back. He could take that COVID year. We're not going to get into that this episode. We don't want to go too long, but Newton and Aline each have the ability to come back for next year. I feel like we'd love to have each of them back. I mean, they were key contributors to the national championship team. I feel like it's a different situation to Cole and Martin because I don't want to say they're worse than Cole and Martin, but I feel like RJ Cole had scored over 2,000 points in college. He had been in college for 5 years. He was ready to move on, and Tyrese Martin obviously got drafted. I don't see Aline. I mean, Newton maybe a very, very outside chance. I don't think he'll get drafted. Aline won't get drafted. So maybe that's the motivation for him to come back. We also do have a scholarship problem. We're already one over with Hawkins declaring. And if either of those two come back on top of any potential transfers from the portal we bring in, it's going to be unfortunate for some of our lower end players who are going to kind of get forced out. I don't want to name any names. I don't want to be wrong, but I feel like we all have an idea who I'm talking about. Some of those guys. And I want to briefly touch upon some of like Andrew, you said, no, this is the worst championship. You saw people say that on Twitter and stuff. Whoever says that, I want them to sit down and watch that 2011 game where there were 94 total points and say that this game was worse. I mean, that was definitely the worst. I feel like even though UConn got the win, I mean, it was ugly. There was low scoring, a lot of missed shots. And San Diego State, they're in the Mountain West. I feel like people who don't follow college basketball that closely just see that and say, oh, they beat a Mountain West team in the national championship. But they were 32-6 going into the game. They had just beat up on Alabama. They beat all these teams to get there. FAU is a very solid team. They only lost, 4 games all year. And then they lost at the buzzer when Lamont Butler hit that shot. I mean, SDSU is a very talented team. They've always been. In that COVID year, 2019-20 season, they were 30-2 before it got shut down. They were going to be a 1 seed. They've always been a very strong program, even if they're in a mid-major conference. So I'm definitely not viewing that as an easy game. I mean, they're 9 deep like us. They have 7 seniors, 2 juniors. I mean, they're a great defensive team. It was I knew we'd win. I don't want to say I knew we'd win. It was not guaranteed, but I couldn't really see us losing to San Diego State in the national championship. So I'm not surprised there, but people are writing them off. I did not do that.
Yeah, it's almost like people forget that the best team wins. No matter what it says, what their name says, they're the best team. They're the better team. And it's almost like people forget that and people take that for granted. That obviously was a great San Diego State team. Every team we played was a great team. It's the best 64 teams in the country, and it gets weeded down day by day. So people are just so nitpicky, and people just want to find reasons to hate. But 5 championships, you can't argue with that. You really can't. A championship is a championship. No year is easier than other years. No year is harder than another year. No March is really less talented than another March. So, maybe get a little grateful out there, guys.
And all the people I saw were complaining about one particular game that didn't get to happen, which was UConn and Kansas. Well, guess what, haters? You get to see that next year, and it's at Kansas. And if we win that, what are you going to say now? Because I love the fact that they're scheduling huge games like this already. Like, I mean, people said our non-cons sucked, our Big East, Big 12 battle games sucked. Everything about our season, supposedly to one fan base in particular, sucked. But I'd be really curious to see what happens with our non-con this year because it was definitely a little on the weak side, but the PKI, I mean, I feel like people completely forget about the fact that we beat Alabama and Iowa State. Yeah, Iowa State, who were both pretty good this year. So, I mean, it's definitely weird that people just find a way to hate on us for everything, but I personally can't wait for that game. It's probably going to end up being the biggest one of our season. I mean, at Kansas, make the same joke I did about Nebraska. What do they have to do in Kansas besides cheer for the Jayhawks out there? So that place is going to be loud, probably toughest environment we play in all season long. But I love the fact that they're scheduling huge games like that already. 22 champs versus 23 champs, and I can't wait for it.
In the official UConn men's basketball social medias, they're already advertising the game that's not set to happen until December 1st. And they're calling it a battle of the blue bloods. And I agree. I feel like UConn has secured that spot. Again, we're not going to get into this debate. That could be a whole 35, 40-minute episode. I'm sure we'd all agree they are a blue blood, but there's arguments that they're not. We're not getting into that right now. I was going to talk about the Big East Big 12 Challenge, so you kind of lead me into that. There's some great matchups, like you mentioned. Us versus Kansas is the headliner. But you have, let's see, Houston, who's now in the Big 12, which is going to be weird to get used to for a little bit. They're visiting Xavier. That's 2 great teams. Let's see, you got Villanova, Kansas State. For Kansas State, fresh off an Elite Eight run, Villanova is going to be better than last year. I feel like that's a guarantee. And another huge one, Texas versus Marquette. Shaka Smart's old school Texas and St. John's, West Virginia, an old Big East battle. Just great matchups. Last year we had Oklahoma State, which was one of the 2 or 3 Big 12 teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament. So kind of had the bad draw there, but we definitely make up for it this year with Kansas. And one last thing, and then we'll wrap up talking about the non-conference. This is all hypothetical, but I feel like I'm not sure what the contract is for the Gavitt games, the Big East Big Ten Challenge, but I know we weren't in the original contract. It resets every handful of years. And we just missed being in it when we rejoined the Big East. I think we may be in it this year. I find it hard to believe we would find a matchup that's not Purdue coming to Gamble Pavilion. I mean, the 2 best teams in the conference, Zach Edey coming to face Donovan Clingan. I feel like that's the obvious solution there. I feel like we didn't have a Big East Big Ten game last year, and Purdue was at home, so they're due to go on the road. I feel like they would send them up to Stores. I mean, that'd be a great matchup. And there's a lot of talk last year between UConn and Purdue fans who should be number one in like December. I feel like we're gonna finally see that matchup. Maybe that's a prediction. I could be wrong, but I feel like we could see that one next year.
I mean, even we're in the 2K Empire Classic at MSG next year. I know features 4 teams, right? With UConn, Texas, Indiana, and another one that I'm not remembering at this time.
It's Louisville, so hopefully we don't get
Okay,
Louisville.
so definitely one little bit worse team. And then us, Texas, and Indiana. So even like that, like just having those tournaments, like being in those is definitely going to be really good for us because at this point, like we're a good team. You know, we just won the national championship. We need to be challenged a little more. And then all the people saying that we should leave the Big East, that's just a bunch of complete baloney because the Big East, in my opinion, is the best conference in college basketball. Again, we don't need to get into that. That could be a 5 hour long episode if we really made it that. But just having these non-conference games, like having to play Indiana and Texas and Kansas before we start the Big East play, I think that's going to end up being really good for us. Even if we don't win all those games, I still feel like it'll be really, really good for us because we're starting to be on the upside now. So we've got to play some better teams. But I think that this season, this next one's going to be a pretty fun one.
All right. No, I think that'll just about do it here for episode 35. I mean, national champions. I mean, it's still crazy to think about. I mean, I don't think any of us saw it coming. I'm at a loss for words still. What, 5 days later? I mean, complete domination. One of the best UConn teams ever. I feel like top three in program history. I mean, it's lost for words. I mean, Sanogo, Hawkins, Jackson, Newton, all these guys really, really awed me, and it's inspirational. And I'm just very happy for them and proud. And that's all I got for now.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to get off my chest before we officially wrap up the season here with HBTH is I'm just gonna let you guys in to my mind a little bit and my toxicity as a sports fan. Um at first when the buzzer went off, I took about 5 minutes to be really excited, running around, jumping around, can't get a smile off my face. But then somehow my brain goes to, man, I really wanted that Big East championship. And I start sitting there thinking, man, am I even completely satisfied right now? We're not even Big East champions. Could I even be happy about the national championship? Now, obviously, I can. This is much more significant than the Big East championship. But man, fans like me are the problem. I'll be honest, guys.
I had a very similar thought today. I was talking to my dad about it, and I go, "Yeah, like it's great, but for some reason, I just really need to beat Providence, and then we need to beat Xavier, and then we need to beat Marquette." So it's like I can't. I don't. I feel like we're hearing from those guys all year. We hear it all from them. Part of me just needs to beat them to feel satisfied, but I'm more than satisfied.
Honestly, the Big East rivalries run a little deeper than March for me, the way I feel sometimes. Sometimes, uh, give me a beating Xavier and beating Villanova in the same season over the national championship. I'm not being serious about that, but I kind of am as a thing.
I just would have loved to beat Shaka Smart in that game. I mean, he looked like he was playing. I mean, he was doing his defensive stance there all the way out past the 3-point line. I think he was being a little obnoxious with the we own the place now because he went out relatively early to his team. So, but this tournament really like brings me back. Like, did we really lost to St. John's by 11 at home, a team that didn't even get close to the NIT? And we beat Gonzaga by 28 points on the way to a national championship. It's just like thinking about it now, it's just like it shows that the Big East is really the toughest conference in the entire college basketball world because that game wasn't easy. I mean, the Seton Hall one too. They hardly made the NIT, I think, or didn't make it, one of the two. But it really proves that our conference is the toughest. But I mean, I'm with you guys. I would have loved to have those 3 trophies like Hurley talked about in the beginning of the season after we won the PKI. But I mean, obviously, extremely happy about our 5th national title.
Yeah, starting with like the Sweet 16 against Arkansas, I probably at least 10 times said out loud, this team lost to St. John's. at home and got bullied doing it. I mean, it's crazy that happened in the same season, let alone 2 months apart. But this group, it surprises all of us. I mean, it's amazing. And like Sark mentioned, the season's over, but we're not done at How About the Muskies. We're gonna produce off-season content. Hopefully, a weekly episode. We get some interviews. Hopefully, fingers crossed, some players on this year's national championship squad. We're trying to work on some stuff. Also, some former players. We'll definitely, How About the Huskies guarantee. We'll get Ryan Boat right on. We've been working on that one for a few months now. Haven't really found a good time for all of us. He's overseas, but we'll get that done this summer for sure, if not sooner. We're gonna have a lot of guests. Tyler Polly will come back. Isaiah Whaley. We're gonna try to have them together. We're gonna get RJ Cole back. Maybe he'll bring Tyrese Martin. It's just got a lot of stuff planned. We got, like I said, 7 months until the next game. We got a lot of ground to cover. We're gonna do our best to bring as much and as great content as we can. We had a blast all season. Thank you all for listening all 35 episodes. I mean, we got this far. Sark, I'm going to shout you out again with that quote. UConn has won every national championship since we started How About Them Huskies? So we're obviously running it back for season 2 to get title number 6. Thanks for watching.